friends, welcome back to my channel. In today's video we're kind of going to be doing a reading challenge. So if you are new here, reading is one of my favorite hobbies, but I haven't had the best reading luck within the past couple of years. In 2023, less than 10% of my reads were 5 stars. I am not particularly stingy with my ratings. I will give something a 5-star even if I think in like a month or two I won't remember anything about it. 5-star is just a feeling for me, but I just haven't found any books that I love, and I want to find books that I love. I want to be in love with reading again. So I have compiled a list of books that I haven't read that I own, because one of my goals is to get through my physical TBR, and we're going to do a video where I read until I get a 5-star and then the video stops. So this could be the first book that I read, this could be 10 books into this video, who knows, but we're gonna try because I want to love reading again and I want to get excited about reading. So I've compiled a stack of books, and I put them in an order I'm unsure of, and then ones that I know I'm gonna like but are possibly 5-star, possibly like 4-star, that I don't know we're gonna get 5 stars. If I wanted to like meta this video, I would just read some of the unread Brandon Sanderson that I have on my shelf, because that's a guaranteed 5-star. I've given every single book that I've read by Brandon Sanderson 5 stars, but I'm avoiding that because I want to find a hidden gem within my unread books. So first up, we are going to be reading A Dawn of Onyx. This is a adult romantasy that I have heard virtually nothing about. I do know that it was like voted on one of the top 10 romantasies on Goodreads last year, and I know it's about a girl who like gets kidnapped by a king. The thing about romantasies for me is they either are very bland or they're really good. And I never know going into a story what it's going to be. So I think this is a pretty good... This is a big unknown for me. So we're going to start with this. I feel like this is a good place to start. This is about Arwen. She offers her life to save her brother, and she's taken prisoner by the most dangerous kingdom on the continent and made to use her rare magical abilities to heal the soldiers of the vicious Onyx King. So it is 400 pages. We're gonna get right into it, and we'll see how this one turns out for me.
Slow love, uncomplicated touch, stable as we go.
So let's talk while my bagel cooks, toasts. Yes, I am 42 pages into Dawn of Onyx, and we start off with Arwen, who lives in the Amber territory. And her territory is at war with the Onyx territory, but it's not really like a fair war because their entire army is like drafted people, whereas the Onyx have purportedly like special powers, and they also have really well-trained soldiers and some other stuff. So it's really not a fair war, and Amber is getting destroyed. They basically lost all of their men. And Arwen lives in this small village that people are basically like slowly dying. The only people left are the women and the older generation. She is a healer. She's apprenticing with another healer. Her brother and the guy that she was in love with, like had a relationship with or whatever, got drafted, and they haven't heard word from them from over a year. She is taking care of her sick mother, and she's also taking care of her younger sister. And in the first couple of chapters, her brother shows up, injured, covered in blood, and he says that he escaped after the Onyx soldiers attacked his battalion, and he managed to get away. He managed to take some of their gold. The plan is to use that gold to then go to another kingdom and hide away and like start a new life there. And they end up getting away, and on the way to the boat that's going to take them to this other kingdom, they realize they forgot their mother's medicine, and she'll basically die without it. And so she goes back to their house, and it's full of Onyx soldiers, and in order to get away and save her family, she makes a deal with them that if she comes on as their healer after she heals this guy who basically had like his intestines falling out, she heals him back to like full, like his intestines are fine, and he just has like a scar. She makes a deal that if they leave her family alone, she will come with them, like she'll be their healer or whatever. And so she's now riding on a dragon, and she's going to the Onyx territory to meet the king, and it's fine so far. I would akin the writing to very typical fantasy romance writing. It's pretty fast-paced, not too in-depth. I feel like I understand the characters without really relating to them all that much, but like I said, I'm only 42 pages in, so you can only relate to a character so much 42 pages in. So I'm not disliking it. Not the best start I've ever read, and if I had to guess, just based on 42 pages into a 400-page book, it's probably gonna be like a 3-star, but we'll see. It could get better, could get worse, so we'll see what happens. I'll update you a little bit later on, I think. I also forgot to mention this, but there is like a brief throwaway line in the beginning about there being fae, and like the fae went away, or they no longer exist, or they haven't been around for centuries, so I'm sure the king and his army are gonna be fae or something. So, because she made mention of like them being weird and seeming off, so I'm sure that's what it is. I know nothing about the story, so that's just an assumption that I'm making off of really easy context clues.
I won't slow down. No need to rush. I'll say it in my dreams. Strangers.
I am halfway through A Dawn of Onyx, so 100 and like a little over 194 pages in, and I'm liking this. It's good. The relationship, the like slower burn is definitely like, I'm kicking my feet and I'm giggling when they interact, but the story itself isn't massively different from all of the other fantasy romances that I've read. There are some notable characters. There is her friend who is a witch who is a little suspicious. But I do like her. She's very bubbly and she loves reading. They became fast friends, and then we have the guy who works in the apothecary with her, who is training her to fight with a sword. Those are that's kind of the extent of the people that she interacts with aside from the king. So basically what's happened is she sacrificed her freedom. She told them, I'll become a healer. She goes to one of their strongholds on the border of her old kingdom, and she becomes the healer, and she finds out that the king is currently in that stronghold. She doesn't really know why. We haven't really found out why quite yet, but he plans to be there for a while, and they interact. They have some conversations, they have some outings together. There's definitely an attraction there. Obviously she doesn't really like him because she thinks that he like basically ravaged her entire kingdom and like is the reason that her brother is injured and her boyfriend or whatever is dead, possibly. She doesn't have the best feelings about him, and of course you get the feeling that that's not the full truth. There's some other things going on with the kingdoms and the war that she doesn't know about and all that. At this point they haven't really had any like physical interactions. He's like backed her into a wall and they've like ridden on a horse together, but that's the extent. So like I said, it's not bad. I am enjoying the reading experience and it's fun, but it's not anything crazy new. And I don't always need all of my stories to be new and inventive and like mind-blowing, but I do want something a little bit different to reach that 5-star new favorite feeling. You could be a good book and still be like all the other fantasy romances that I've read. So I'm probably gonna try to finish this today, and then we'll pick our next book up. Definitely not gonna be a 5-star. I don't think there's anything it could do at this point to be a 5-star, but it's a fun read and it's making me like have fun, and I'm giggling and all that kind of stuff over the romance. So I'm gonna continue reading. I might stop, take a break and watch a YouTube video, and then we're gonna get back into it. So we'll be back.
Oh, my mind and my seas, all I need from you to me. Oh, my mind and my seas, all I need from you to me. Oh, my mind and my seas, all I need from you to me. Oh, my mind and my seas, all I need from you to me. Why can't you see me on my knees for you, baby? I'm falling.
The amount of times that this book has blue-balled me is insane.
Oh, my mind and my seas, all I need from you to me.
Please ignore the sound of my fan and my heater if you can hear it, but it is like 9:30 at night, and about an hour-ish ago, I ended up finishing Dawn of Onyx, and as predicted, I did decide to give this 3 stars. Like I mentioned in a previous clip, it's just your very stereotypical romantasy, straight down to the twist at the end and the way that the ending wrapped up and the cliffhanger and all of it. It's not very inventive. Which for a debut, and like it doesn't always have to be inventive, but like I said, in order to reach that like 5-star status, I need something at least a little bit new, something that I haven't read 1,000 times before. That being said, it is very fun, and it's definitely a slow burn. So if you were looking for that, I would check this out. If you're new to romance, new to fantasy romance, I would say this is a good place to start because it is relatively low stakes. It's kind of quiet, and there isn't a lot of like big new concepts that are overwhelming to read. It's also fairly slow burn in the romance, so it's not a bad place to start, but for someone who's read a lot of fantasy romance, it's not anything new. Like I have said, I'm going to stop harping on that point. But yeah, a 3-star, not a 5-star. I wasn't sure how this would turn out, so that's why it was kind of towards the top of my list of things to get to. So now I think I'm going to start A Fragile Enchantment by Allison Saft. This is actually the Fairy Loot edition. This is the newest Fairy Loot selection. And this cover, the sprayed edges, the in pages, absolutely stunning. One of my favorite editions. I'm loving the pink, but I'm very excited to actually like get to the story. Obviously, I believe this is just a historical romance. I don't think it's a fantasy, even though this came in the fantasy box. But I don't know much about it. All I know is it's gorgeous, and I'm really excited to get into it. So we'll talk about it once I've actually gotten into it. I'm probably going to read for the rest of the night, and then I'll probably update you guys tomorrow with my initial thoughts. am 70 pages into A Fragile Enchantment. I'm enjoying it so far. It's not my favorite read, and I at the moment can't see it being 5 stars, but it's fun. The immediately gripping part of the story is definitely the history of the kingdom and the magic. It is a fantasy romance, a YA fantasy romance, that I am a little bit confused by the magic system of. I don't really know what the magic system entails. But we open the story with our main character. Her name is, I can't remember what her name is. I'll have it for the next clip, but she gets employed by Prince Regent or something like that to be the tailor for the prince for the season and his upcoming wedding. She is from, I don't know entirely what the backstory or the basis of the story is, but I'm thinking it's something along the lines of England being the main kingdom that she's in, and she is from Scotland. They talk about the fight for independence, the war, and sort of the repercussions of the war on her home country. She has magic, and she is able to embed feelings into thread when she is sewing. So if she wants a garment to have the feeling of whimsy, of joy, of nostalgia, then she can tailor a dress that will make everybody who looks at the dress feel nostalgic for their childhood and stuff like that. So she comes to this kingdom, and immediately she already is in a bad way because her family is very poor, and she's sort of the breadwinner, and she's hoping that this position will allow her to get them in a stable place because she is sick and she doesn't know how long she has to live. Meets the Prince Regent and the prince who she is tailoring for, and there's a very weird relationship between the two that we don't really get a lot of backstory on. They definitely don't have a good relationship. I think the Prince Regent views his brother as just like a wild child who doesn't know his place, and the Prince Regent seems to not have the best relationship with not only his own kingdom but other kingdoms. People don't really seem to like him a bunch, and he kind of gives off weird energy to the main character, and so she works with the prince to tailor some jackets and stuff for his season, for the balls that are going on, and they have a very tension-filled relationship so far. He doesn't really want to get married, and so he's just being obstinate for the sake of that, and that includes her, and she kind of gives it right back to him. But we definitely are seeing a little bit of his backstory and the things that are kind of causing him to be the way he is, possibly addiction, and some other just emotional things that come along with, I feel like, being despair or whatever. The most gripping part of this is definitely the magic system. It's very interesting. We haven't really gotten a lot into the magic system and how it works. It feels very low-key. I would akin it to something like Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia. I just mean in like the quietness of the magic. It just existing, like it just being a magical world and not being the biggest part of the story. So overall, it's a good read. I think it's cute. The writing is great. It's simple while also being ethereal is the best way I would describe it. It's very like historical romance writing, very like Bridgerton-esque writing, but it has this magical element to it that makes it a fun read, even though subject matter and the characters aren't the most fun. Like, they're not particularly funny. The banter isn't hilarious. There's just a lot of simmering tension over the whole story that keeps the story interesting. So we'll see how the story progresses. It's not a very long book. I'm hoping to finish it today, but I don't know how much time I'm gonna have to read today, so I'm gonna get as far as I can, and I'll probably update you guys at the halfway mark. But not another 5-star. I'm not mad about it because I was very excited to get to this book as soon as the box came and I saw the book. So I'm not mad, but definitely not a 5-star. Good morning, friends. In full transparency, I'm not doing well at all. And usually in my weekly vlogs, I would feel compelled to talk about it, but thankfully this is a reading vlog and I don't have to talk about it because y'all are here for the books. So I finished Fragile Enchantment. As predicted, I did give this 3 stars. It's a good book. It's cute, it's soft, it's quiet. I enjoyed my time here. It's not something I will remember, but it's a good little read. The embroidery part of this, like the magic and her being a seamstress, doesn't play a massive part, unfortunately. My 2 biggest complaints with this are, like, there's a lot of storylines that I feel like were unnecessary that we wasted time on, and that created conflict that we didn't really need. And there are parts of the story that just didn't really get the time that I think the story needed to feel like fully fleshed out. So that is another 3-star. We're gonna pick out another book. We're gonna start that, and I'll come back to you when I'm into it and give you my initial thoughts, as is the template for this video, I guess. So I am 117 pages into our next read, which is The Principles of Moments, which is also part 2 of the novel. And I feel pretty settled, pretty comfortable talking about what I think the story is about and how I'm feeling and all of that. So we open the story in 6066 with Asha, who lives in a new galaxy, a different galaxy than our own, and it's ruled by a dictator and this like alien species. Basically all humans are forced to do labor, build guns and stuff like that, from young kids to all the way to adulthood. She lives with her mom, and she has always dreamed of going to space, and she has hacked into this like Space Academy's systems to learn how to fly a spaceship and all that kind of stuff. She's walking home one day from the temple where they're supposed to pray and all that to the dictator, and there's this weird being there that she's never seen before, and it is talking to her mom, and her mom makes eye contact with her. The alien spins around and basically accosts her and says that if she doesn't come with the alien, then her entire family is going to die. Her mom's going to die, and she gets visions of this girl who she doesn't know but that calls her sister, and some other things going on. And then we flash to 1812 to Obi, who is a time traveler going back to 1812 to meet a previous lover that he had that he ended things abruptly with when he was a teenager. And his lover is a prince, and they had kind of a rocky, secretive relationship. And in the midst of them rekindling things, he gets sucked into Asha's timeline in her galaxy, and they end up having to escape into space to flee away from the dictators and also some like wonky time travel-y things that are going on. This is a space opera, so if you are not familiar with the space opera, it's a genre of science fiction that basically focuses more on really outlandish and overdramatic elements of science fiction, not so much the science fiction that is rooted deeply in science and can kind of be more realistic, I guess. This is a space opera, so it's completely unrealistic, overdramatic, over the top, and very, very fast paced. That's the staples of the genre. It definitely took me a second to get into this. I'm not a big sci-fi reader. I focus mainly on fantasy. I have been reading a lot of romance and fantasy, and the feeling of romance and fantasy is just very different than science fiction, sci-fi, and no matter who is writing it, no matter how simple the writing is, it always takes me a moment to get acclimated to a sci-fi world. But once I got comfortable in the writing and comfortable in the language and everything, all of the facts that were being thrown at us, I really, really came to enjoy the story. I'm very fascinated by the concept of time travel, traveling through space, and space in general. I don't quite frankly know why I don't read sci-fi, because it sounds like something that I would absolutely adore, but I just haven't. I'm really enjoying it. Really enjoying the characters. I'm really interested to see how these two characters' storylines play out, because so we open the book with the knowledge that all of the information that we're getting, the stories that we're getting, were written down by archivists. Translation and archiving and all of that naturally has a bias for the person that is writing it. So we know that the story is coming with a little bit of bias. The beginning of each chapter, the end of each chapter, we're getting snippets of these archived pieces that tell the story of 3 heroes in the Age of Heroes that were birthed by the Mother Earth, Mother Planet, we don't know if it's Earth for sure, Mother Planet, to save her. And 1 is gifted time traveling, and 2 are gifted other gifts. And we get the idea that they are reincarnated and they meet each other again and again, and it's a saga that keeps going on and on. So it's very clear that these 2 that we have met so far are part of that saga. The time traveler one is obvious. Don't quite know who the woman is. Asha, I don't know where she fits in the story. We haven't really found out much of the fable to begin with. We just know that there is a person that was gifted with time traveling. So the parallels between those 2 and finding out the information of both stories at once, I'm interested. So I'm definitely falling into it, which is good because it's 500 pages. And once I was into it, it read very quickly. So if anything else, I'm very excited for the adventure, the fast-pacedness. I am probably going to just finish it out unless something crazy happens that I feel like talking about. So I just finished The Principle of Moments. I'm actually very impressed with this debut sci-fi. So I found out that the author wrote this when she started writing this when she was 18, which is just mind-blowing. It's very heavily inspired by Doctor Who, Star Wars, a lot of those really popular staples in the sci-fi genre. And if I was gonna be like really picky, this would probably be like a 3.75, but I'm gonna round it up to a 4 because I'm so excited to see what this author does with this series and in her career going forward. This was such a strong start to a series. There were definitely areas of it that I feel like could use some improvement. It was incredibly fast-paced, and with fast pacing, you're generally lacking in some other areas of the story, like character connection, fleshing out some of the world building and things like that. But again, just very, very impressed with how the story went. I did start feeling the page length towards the end a little bit, but this was so action-packed that the majority of the time I didn't feel the page length going. There is a lot of repetitive scenes of like the same things happening over and over again. But again, overall, really impressed, really enjoyed it. Not quite a 5-star, but I still am thrilled that I got to this. I don't know if I ever would have picked it up otherwise, except for this video. It probably would have just languished on my shelf because I'm so intimidated by science fiction, but very happy that I picked it up. And regardless of its rating, I have found an author that I can look out for in the future, that I'm very excited to read from, and a sci-fi series that I feel like is a great introduction to the genre and has made me feel more comfortable in the genre. That means that we need to start our next book. So these are the books that I have still to read, and I'm thinking that I want to read something not science fiction or fantasy. So I think I'm going to try Cold Clay. This is the second book in the Shady Hollow Mystery series. This is a series about a small town called Shady Hollow, and it's populated by woodland creatures. And in the first book, we followed a fox who was trying to solve a murder mystery of a curmudgeony toad. And this one, it's set in the autumn, and they discover the bones of a moose. And we're following Vera Vixen, who was the fox again. So I'm excited. I really, really, really liked the first one. I cannot remember I believe I gave the first one 5 stars. It's tons of fun, and it's just really cozy and comforting. So we're gonna hop into this one, and I'll let you know how it goes. So I did manage to finish Cold Clay in basically one sitting. This is a pretty short book. It's only like 215 pages. I gave this 3 stars. Unfortunately, this was not as good as the first one. The first one had a lot of charm. You were being introduced to a new world, so that brought a level of excitement to it. But I felt like this one was entirely about the mystery, whereas the first one was more about the community in addition to the mystery, and that was just lacking a little bit in this second one. I'm still, of course, going to read the third one and probably continue the rest of the series with however many books there are, but this one was just a little bit disappointing, which sucks because it's set in the fall, and like I feel like it was primed to have the best vibe of any of the books, and it kind of just failed a little bit, but that's okay. We'll pick up the third one eventually, probably not in this video, but eventually. I do own it, so sometime this year we'll pick up the third one. But yeah, unfortunately 3 stars. So on to the next one.
Blue dew blue moon, kinda mysterious, shaded with someone I'm not really into. Do you need to fix it? Talking bullshit. It's hard to see you when your eyes look dull. Who's gonna save you? Who's gonna make you not blue?
So unfortunately, after maybe 160 to 70 pages, I decided to DNF What the River Knows. I'll put the book cover right here. This is the naked hardcover, which is absolutely gorgeous. I wasn't really having the best luck with the story itself. It is a YA fantasy, and it did read a little bit young. It follows a girl, Inez, who is living with her aunt in Buenos Aires, and her parents are archaeologists, and they work in Egypt. It's set in like the early 1800s. They work in Egypt uncovering artifacts and stuff, and she gets a letter one day saying that they have disappeared and they've been presumed dead. And her uncle won't really give her any answers, so she takes a boat over to Egypt and basically stows away. The story was just, the pacing was not it. Partially, I think the marketing was a little bit off, because I was under the impression that this was going to be this sort of like, she's there at the dig site, like that sort of situation, and that's not really what it was. The majority of what I read, when I stopped reading, we hadn't even gotten to the dig site, or like they weren't even settled in yet. The majority of the first portion was her at the hotel trying to convince her uncle to take her along. And then the next portion was her scrubbing the deck of a ship. So it just wasn't my cup of tea. I was really excited for the story. I was expecting this grand adventure, and it just was a little bit slow. Not the story that I was looking for, and I wasn't completely compelled by any of the characters or the mystery or anything. I decided to move on. Knew it wasn't going to be a 5-star, and it was a book that I was sort of forcing myself to read. Yesterday I watched an entire season of Abbott Elementary and picked this book up none. I knew that if I was really into it, I wouldn't even have watched the TV show, or I would have watched a couple episodes and wanted to get back into my book. So I just knew that it was not the story for me. I did decide to pick up the Forest Grimm. This is the Fairy Loot edition. This is what the cover looks like. I am 69 pages in. This is basically an amalgamation of Grimm fairy tales. We open the story with our heroine, and she lives in a small village in the forest with her grandmother, who is a fortune teller. And this village has been cursed. They used to have this book. It granted everyone one wish, and they couldn't wish for anything else. And if they tried to wish for anything else, it would void all wishes. And then someone used that book to commit murder, and so the book was taken and the forest turned against them, started rotting all of their crops and their land, and so their village is slowly dying. They lose more and more people because people start to get, I guess, entranced by the forest, and they become lost, capital L, and that includes Clara's mom. And every year they have like a lottery system. Your name gets pulled and you get the chance to go into the forest to try to find all the lost people. Nobody has been able to make it that far into the forest and live. The people that have been able to make it through have died. Some people, you walk a couple of steps in and the forest rejects you, so it doesn't always kill you. In the opening chapter, her friend ends up getting picked, but he can't make it through. He is looking for his lost fiance. She ends up discovering a way to trick the forest, and so her and the guy that is her best friend who lost his fiance go into the forest together, and that's kind of where the story left off when I set it down to do this update. It's pretty good so far. The writing is very eerie. It's very reminiscent of a Grimm's fairy tale where it's just kind of unsettling and you don't quite know the dark twist that the story is going to take. I don't think it's going to get too dark just because it is YA. I'm really enjoying it so far. I don't know if it's going to quite be a 5-star, but I am enjoying it and I'm excited to like get back into the story. It's fairly short. This is how much I have left, so hopefully I can wrap it up in the next couple of days. I'm honestly, admittedly, a little bit burnt out on reading. Like, I'm excited to read and I want to read, and like I still have an entire stack of books that I want to get to, but I was hoping that I would have a 5-star by now. I've read a lot of books and none of them have been 5 stars, which is okay, but I was hoping that that would not be the case. So
That sort of witty and jaded, but let's not talk about your coyote song.
So I finished the Forest Grimm, and say it with me, I gave it 3 stars. This is fine. It's just like a typical fairy tale retelling. She's going through this forest with her best friend and the guy that she has feelings for, and they're running into fairy tales, and the story's playing out. She's trying to save her mom, release this curse, and it's just fine. The writing is fine. The characters are fine. Yeah. So we're officially 6 books in, and we have nothing to show for it, except that I'm getting through my physical TBR, which I guess is a plus. I think the best chance to set myself up for success is to read a romantasy. I know Dawn of Onyx didn't do much for me, but I'm going to try something else that has been getting good reviews that I'm hoping I will really enjoy and possibly give 5 stars. And that is Powerless. This has been making its way around the bookternet, and I am hoping that it'll be a 5-star. It's set in the kingdom of Ilia. The elites have possessed powers for decades, and then there are ordinaries banished from the kingdom. Phaedon is an ordinary posing as a psychic to blend in with the elites. She saves one of the princes. She's thrown into the purging trials, a competition showcasing the elite's powers. If the trials don't kill her, the prince she's fighting feelings for will discover she's completely ordinary. So, again, heard good things. Let's get into it. Fingers crossed. Okay, ladies and days, I have some fantastic news. I am 158 pages into Powerless, and this could very well be a 5-star. I got the urge to annotate, which never happens unless I'm really enjoying a book. So basically, this is about Phaedon. I'm gonna call her Phaedon. She is living in a kingdom where there's people with powers, and they're called elites, and ordinaries are like people without powers, and they've kind of been exiled from this kingdom. She's living in the slums with her best friend. She lost her family young, and she one day saves the prince. As a reward for her saving the prince's life, she gets to enter into these trials. Very Hunger Games-esque. I don't like comparing popular books to other popular books because I like for stories to be able to stand on their own, but at one point I really was like, is this Hunger Games fan fiction? Because it felt like it. So now she is living in the castle for 2 weeks leading up to the trial. She's training and she's getting closer to both princes, the main character, Kai, and his brother Kit, who is the future king, and he is the enforcer, which is like the person that runs the army and stuff like that. And he's like a secret assassin for his father, which is interesting. He hunts down people that are ordinaries that are living in their kingdom when they're not supposed to. And I'm really enjoying their back and forth. I really enjoy their banter. It's fun, it's spicy, and they have some like true warrior interactions, like fighting each other, punching each other, drawing blood, things like that. Very fun, very different. I think a lot of, especially like enemies to lovers, try to emulate that, try to give off that vibe, and it just never goes there. But they're like beating the shit out of each other, which is interesting. It's fun, it's different. So I'm really enjoying the relationship. That's what the majority of my tabs are, and I am actually getting into the world. It's a decently long book, so I'm excited to get more into the world, more into their relationship. At this point, they are just intrigued with each other. We're definitely seeing more of an attraction from his point of view as opposed to hers. She's kind of admitted that he's intriguing, but hasn't really said much more. She's much more focused on like the trial and living and all that, and he, even though he's in the trial, is not really concerned. A lot of his point of view is talking about her and his family and stuff like that. So I'm really enjoying it. I'm really hoping that it's a 5-star, because I can't keep doing this. So I am going into the last 100 pages of Powerless, and I wanted to talk about it a little bit. I have been annotating and I have been writing in this, which usually is a sign to me that I'm really enjoying a book, that I want to interact with it and kind of leave memories in the book in a way that I don't feel for every single book. Very, very, very much enjoying this. I'm loving the romance. The romance is very different than what I've read in most fantasy romances. The tropes are the same, the way the characters interact are the same, but the actual interactions themselves are very different. A lot of fantasy romances, you're dealing with the cold bad boy who is emotionless and misunderstood, and then the heroine who's a badass who came from a bad upbringing where she had to learn to fight, and that is very much the typical fantasy romance tropes, and that is what we're seeing here. But it's done so differently, and the way the characters interact is so different than what I'm used to. The conversations they have, the connection that they have is very different, and that is what's carrying me through the story. I will say that the actual fantasy elements, the trial elements, the pacing, and the things that the author chose to focus on are not my favorites. All of those areas are a little bit lacking. But the romance itself is like really carrying this through. So I guess when you're looking at it from a fantasy romance standpoint, you obviously want both to be equally as strong, and that's just not really the case here. The romance is definitely the standout part here, and I again cannot emphasize enough how much I am loving romance. Now, as I have mentioned in a previous clip, I am getting very tired of doing this video, and if I were to be, I guess, disingenuous or take the liberties to end this vlog and say that this was a 5-star, but it's not a 5-star. It's a strong 4 for sure. Depending on the last 100 pages, it could possibly reach a 5-star, but at this point it's really not. This page length and the pacing and the little details that I think our author misses just really does this book a disservice. But again, the romance is killer. I'm a romance girly at heart. I love romance over everything, and the romance in this is spectacular. So I'm definitely loving the story. I'm blowing through it, and I'm definitely going to continue the series and read more from this author. I don't know if she's written more books, but I definitely will follow her career. But it's not my perfect book, and I'm not gonna make it a 5-star just so that I could end this video. But we're gonna wrap it up. We're gonna read the last 100 pages, and then we're going to probably get into another video that I'm hoping to have up before this one, where I read for 24 hours, read contemporary romances for 24 hours, and then we're gonna come back to this video. And we're gonna get a 5-star. I'm convinced. I thought about breaking this into parts. I thought about just ending it here, but no, we're gonna get a 5-star. That's the point of the video, so that's what we're gonna do. So I'm gonna read this last little bit that I have. I'm gonna come back to you, and then we're going to pick our next book for the video if this doesn't get a 5-star, which again, the last 100 pages are gonna have to do a lot of work to get me to that 5-star, because I can already see how the ending is gonna go, and I've already had a bunch of other complaints about the story itself thus far. But yes, if you are like a romance person and you don't really care about the fantasy like at all, and you just don't care to look at consistencies, you don't care for your fantasy elements to be strong at all, I would recommend this, because the romance in this is spectacular.
I could sit around and wait all day. You lay easy on my mind, like a candle I just burn away. All we really have is time. All we really have is time.
Okay, friends, I finished Powerless, and I gave it 5 stars. I really genuinely didn't think that this was gonna get 5 stars, but I finished it and I sat on it, and that last 100 pages, I'm telling you, just did it for me. I am a sucker for romance. I don't know what to say. Like, I really thought this was gonna be a 4-star, but I'm really happy that the last 100 pages really redeemed it. I'm so excited for the way that the series goes. I'm very impressed that this is a debut novel. And yeah, their romance I feel like I have to give their romance itself a full star. Like, I don't have a choice. It's just so good. The epilogue set up the second book so well, and yeah, I'm very, very, very surprised with that last 100 pages. And yeah, so we finally found a 5-star. It took forever, and I honestly didn't think that this video was gonna end anytime soon, to be honest. Like, I still have an entire stack of books that I haven't read yet that I was like, I'm gonna have to read all of these before I find a 5-star. But I'm very happy, and I kind of knew that a romantasy would probably get a 5-star from me, just because, like I said, I'm a romance girl. Giggling, kicking my feet, loved it so much. So I'm very happy that I did this video. I got through a decent chunk of my physical TBR, which was a goal for me. I found 2 new authors to look out for, and I enjoyed the majority of the books. I don't think I disliked avidly any of them. Even the one that I DNF'd, I didn't dislike. Like, they were all decent reads. Even though we got a lot of 3 stars out of this one, which is like my typical rating. I think my average is like 3.2 or something like that. So anyways, very happy that I finally got a 5-star. I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. I would love to know your thoughts down below on any of the books that I read. If you have read any of them, what your last 5-star read was, please let's talk down below. Other than that, don't forget to subscribe if you're looking for more content like this. I do make book videos, but I also just make life videos, talk about mental health and the things I'm going through, show my cats, all of that fun stuff. Just take you guys along with me in my life. So don't forget to subscribe. All my socials are linked down below. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you guys in my next one.
Wanna waste it on anybody. Take it with them.